what I'd like to do now, and then we might have time for a couple of questions. I'd like to hand over to Helen, who's runs a great business. She's running an award-winning bookkeeping business, and is a fantastic Select member. And Helen's just going to give her take now on a couple of the ideas around key performance indicators. So Helen, if you'd like to share your screen.
So having talked about balance of KPIs, I'm kind of all about finances. So I'm going to talk a little bit about cost of sales KPIs, gross and net profit. And the reason I've got a dragon there is because I do love watching Dragon's Den. And those of you who don't watch it probably ought to, because it's great fun. But what interests me is that when the business owners fall down and they get caught out by the dragons, it's nearly always about their numbers. 2 shows ago, about a fortnight ago, one couple of guys that were presenting didn't understand the difference between their gross and their net profit. And they didn't understand what went in what bit. So I'm obviously all about measuring numbers, but not just looking at them and saying that's what we did, but actually analysing why these things have happened and what does that tell us about what's happened and what can we therefore do to change that. So we don't just look at it and think, oh, we've made a great profit, or we haven't made a great profit. We think about why, and we look at all the different elements in the profit and loss to see what's performing well and what's performing badly. So what is gross and net profit? And forgive me for those of you who find this really easy, but you've got your sales less your cost of sales, and that gives you your gross profit. Now, cost of sales examples, these are things that directly relate to making that sale. So very obviously, products, widgets that you sell or software that you resell. It also includes stock if you are a product-based business, and it can include the direct cost of labour. So if you've got a business that bills by the hour for people's labour, you might very well want that in the cost of sales. A lot of these cost of sales elements are usually variable and linked to the sales. I'm going to look at some percentages in a minute. What comes underneath the profit to give you your net profit are your overheads. And those are things that are general across the business, like rent, utility bills, insurance, not specifically related to making those sales. And they're often fixed, and you always have such a big element of control over how much they are. I mean, you can always try and get your insurance a bit lower, but you might not be able to have a lot of leeway in changing the prices of those things, whereas your cost of sales, your labour and your cost of your products is going to have a bigger impact. So if you're going to concentrate on a KPI, look at the things that have a really big impact on your profit. The things that are 30% or 50% of your sales are going to make a really big impact. So that's that. Right, I've now got the power of percentages. I always present reports to business owners with percentages added, because if you look at these two very simple profit and loss, the one on the left has made sales of 150. That could be 1,000. I just put simple numbers to make it easy to follow. Their cost of sales to make those sales were 45, so that was 30%, and their gross profit was therefore 70% of the sales. They've made 105 gross profit. On the right, if you don't look at the percentages, it looks like you've got a great increase of sales, you've gone up by 1/3, and on the bottom line you've got a great increase of profit, which is 130. So if you looked at it without the percentages, you might think, oh, we're doing really well, sales are up, profits up. But if you then add a percentage in, the one on the right, you can see that the cost of sales have actually gone up to 35%. And the percentage of your gross profit is only 65 now in 70. So you want to have a good look at why the cost of sales have gone up. Is it because your suppliers have put their prices up and you haven't reflected that in your sales? If it's very labour based, is something less productive? Have you got a new member who's less productive than other members? What can you do about that? So put the percentages in and then see if they're going up and down. Analyse why and what that means about your business and how you can improve that going forward. So you turn these lagging indicators into a leading one to plan for your next period. Just a brief thing here, because this won't relate to those of you who've got a service-based business, but if you have got a product-based business, I just wanted to put in how important stock is and the measuring of stock and how it affects your profits. If you don't put stock into your accounts, or you only do it once a year, you might not be getting a true picture of your operating profits. So just a simple example, the one on the top would be a really easy profit and loss with no stock. So in the period, a month or a year, you've made 100 grand of sales and you've bought purchases for 40. So it looks like you've got a 60 grand profit. So those 40 grand purchases, it looks on the top as if it cost you 40 grand to make the sales of 100 grand. If you add stock into that, which I think should be done monthly if you're a product-based business, you've got the same sales, but at the beginning of the period, you had 10 grand's worth in stock. You bought the same amount, which was 40, so you've got 50 altogether, and at the end of the period, you've got 20 less. So it actually only cost you 30 grand to make those sales, and you've got 70 grand profit. So this isn't always monitored. This is why I've stuck it in there for product-based businesses. So that's important to have your stock really accurate. Powerful stuff. Percentages. I think it's much easier to look at percentage changes than pure numbers. I believe you should look at your profit and loss figures monthly. If you get to the end of your financial year and then it goes to the accountant and then you get your limited company accounts to sign after another 6 months, you're 12 to 18 months further on, and that's a long time without being able to make a change. If you look at your profit and loss monthly with your percentages, or quarterly, it should be a habit that you get into, and you should look at the percentage changes and figure out why that is. So, for example, I had a new member of staff in March, so my labour is now a bigger percentage and it's taken my profit down, but I allowed for that. I knew that was going to happen. So there was an explanation for it. Some other examples that I've got from customers is that I had somebody, we looked at their annual accounts and her sales were down 25%, but she'd spent 3 times as much on marketing. So she decided to do a certain new marketing strategy that year and her sales had dropped. So we basically decided that wasn't working and what should she do to change that? That's the kind of thing you should be looking at. This is only going to work if your accounts are up to date and accurate, of course. If you don't catch up on your bookkeeping for about 3 or 4 months, or even leave it to the end of the year, these figures are not going to be meaningful unless they're up to date and accurate. And the best way to do that is to have accounting software. All these percentage reports can be produced really easily in accounting software like Xero and QuickBooks. So although you could sit for hours working it all out on a spreadsheet, let the technology do it for you. And that's me.
Brilliant.
So I hope that was useful.
Thank you very much, Helen. Yeah, that's fantastic. And yeah, I saw that episode of Dragon's Den as well. He didn't know his difference, did he, between net profit and gross profit. So